Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where I talk about retro pop culture and other nonsense. I'm not looking at the camera. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where I talk about retro pop culture and other nonsense. This is the other nonsense. Today we're talking about Eurovision, and specifically the role that satire plays in the gay musical Olympics. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, then you probably already know that I love comedy as an art form, and satire in particular is something I'm really passionate about. My final thesis paper for theater history last semester was actually like 20 pages about the history of satire and the development of modern comedic theater. And it was actually even less interesting than it sounds. So when my American ass discovered the comedic gold mine that is Eurovision last year, I could not have been more thrilled. But not everyone appreciates the rich world of Eurovision novelty songs as much as they should, and I'm on a mission to change that. Now, I already knew I really wanted to make this video. Like, I was in the process of researching it and writing it when this year's Eurovision season started. But then the season got into full swing, and it was so full of surprises in the realm of novelty entries that I knew I had to make this video. This is a topic that I've seen touched on by others in the Eurovision community. Like, I've seen people do videos about joke songs and things like that, but I've never really seen anyone take an analytical look at the role of comedy in this competition. And after the results of this year's edition, where 2 novelty songs finished in the top 5, I think it is long past time we really gave some of these songs their due. So today we're going to take a look at 10 of the most iconic satirical entries seen at Eurovision and explore what makes each one a notable piece of art. We're going to get into the list very shortly, but first, let's talk about joke songs. This video is specifically about satire at Eurovision, not joke entries or novelty songs in general. I'm going to get into my criteria for what is and isn't included here in a minute. However, the continued reduction of satirical pieces at Eurovision to that of joke entry makes it essential to deconstruct the concept in order to fully appreciate what we're actually talking about here. So what is a joke entry at Eurovision? For my non-Eurofan viewers or those of you who are just starting out, the term joke entry or joke song is most often used by the Eurovision community to refer to an entry, most often a novelty entry or comedy song, that isn't considered to be a serious attempt. The joke here does not refer to the content of the song, but to the fact it was submitted specifically to Eurovision, and its inclusion in Eurovision is the punchline. A joke song is basically the Eurovision equivalent of a musical shitpost. It's a term used to describe a song as being low effort, dumb, or, well, submitted as a joke. It's something that you're not supposed to take seriously because supposedly the artist or the country submitting it didn't take it seriously. Okay, listen up. I hate the term joke entry. Because the problem with labeling something as a joke entry is that it completely disregards the genre of comedy as being worthy of artistic merit. The term is almost always applied to a novelty song, as if the only reason someone would write a comedy song and submit it to the biggest music competition in the world is because they don't take that competition seriously or they don't take music seriously. Now, to be fair, there are a number of joke songs that were submitted to the competition with the express purpose of performing badly. And we are going to talk about those, but even those are a form of performance art and sometimes even protest art. Even the most purposefully bad entries have something to say and use their perceived low quality as a vessel for delivering that message. Which is why I think the term joke song is outdated and unfair. I think it's unfair that we tend to think of comedy as a lesser form of art that we would only send to a competition as a joke. Even though comedy is, historically, a genre made by, for, and about the common people, it's still seen as being somehow lesser than drama. It almost feels like if we laugh with or at something, it's automatically not credible as a serious piece of art. As I once heard it said by someone, possibly me when I was on one of my more philosophical tangents, we can laugh at a funny film, but we won't nominate it for an Oscar. Because the highbrow elites have convinced us that drama is the highest form of art. I have an entire conspiracy theory going all the way back to the city Dionysia dramatic festivals of ancient Greece that the elites throughout history have used their position as the ruling class to decide what is and isn't art because they know that art moves people and they see comedy as a threat because it makes fun of the ruling class and empowers the common people. So they've convinced us over the course of theatrical history that drama is the highest form of art because historically drama revolves around the ruling class and comedy revolves around the common people. But this isn't a video about a secretive cabal of artistic elites deciding what is and isn't proper art. It's a video about Eurovision. But anyway, we might find comedy fun, but we rarely look at it through the lens of art that can be analyzed. And the same goes for comedy music. In fact, I think comedy music is usually treated even worse than other forms of comedic art. Generally, novelty songs are something you put on in the car to shock or confuse your friends. They're not something that most people would choose to just listen to over other forms of music. Like, I think the majority of the population probably isn't putting on Tom Lehrer or Ninja Sex Party for their morning commute, although I do think we would all be in a much better mood if we did. Now, yes, our boy Al did break this mold by winning several Grammys, but he's very much an outlier who broke a lot of barriers by doing so. Generally, novelty music isn't seen as being as serious or as worthy of attention as even your most basic dance track. And we see this a lot at Eurovision. The thing about Eurovision that I love is that it's open to almost any genre of music. We've seen metal, opera, rap, country, or Europe's idea of country, Celtic New Age, and yes, novelty. A lot of novelty. But despite the large number of novelty entries that we've seen over the years, they don't tend to place very high. And they're often very polarizing within the Eurovision community, with some people living for the chaotic energy they bring, and others ripping them apart and claiming that comedy is destroying the artistic merit of this very serious and not at all silly competition. Yeah, it's the guy in the denim egg ruining Eurovision, and not, well, you know. Some people even say the selection process should be changed to weed out joke entries. But is it really fair to call every comedy entry a joke entry? Is a comedy song really less worthy of analysis or artistic acclaim than a Swedish woman singing about how love makes her happy? Or a Swedish man singing about being heroes? Or a group of Swedes singing about Napoleon? Are we really going to let the Swedish decide what is and isn't art? It's for this reason that I've chosen to explore satire as it exists on the Eurovision stage. Because satire isn't just comedy. It's comedy with a message and comedy with a point. And I think that's what makes it one of the best ambassadors for cementing comedy's place in the world's biggest artistic competition. Before we get into the entries we're going to be analyzing today, let's set a few parameters. Because the annoying fact is that musical genres are broad, confusing, and usually very unclear and overlapping. There's no need to argue over these definitions because it's all relative and subjective anyway.
No rule! Woohoo!
But for the purposes of this video, here is how I view a few key genre definitions and how they're going to be used in this discussion.
Oh, what is this? Yes, rules.
Novelty music can have many different definitions to different people, but here I'm using the qualification of a song that is based on a comedic or silly subject and meant to be funny, confusing, or shocking. So, for example, Lordi does not qualify for me as a novelty act because fantasy/horror metal with elaborate costumes is its own separate genre, and while entertaining, isn't really meant to make people laugh. So when I talk about novelty at Eurovision, I'm specifically talking about comedy songs. So songs like Barabara Bastu, Give That Wolf a Banana, and Eat Your Salad are what I'm referring to. Satire, however, is a more specific definition. I think a lot of people don't actually know what satire is. Not all comedy is satire, and it drives me absolutely nuts when people just call anything funny satire when it isn't. So I'm going to break it down for you real fast. Satire is a genre of media, usually comedy but not always, that subverts or exaggerates established tropes in order to make a specific point or accomplish a specific goal. In order for a Eurovision entry to be considered satirical and therefore included in this video, it has to be both comedic in some way and have a concrete goal, a message or subversion about society, or, for the purposes of this video, the Eurovision Song Contest itself. So, sadly, under this criteria, my beloved Windows 95 man will not be included. I know, it's very sad, I'm going to miss him too, but at least we have his aesthetic in my editing to keep his spirit with us. Let's have a moment to appreciate his sacrifice. Okay, that's enough of that. Not that muhimin temu. I haven't included every single satirical act that's ever been at Eurovision. I mostly stuck to entries I thought were the most interesting or notable or that had a message I thought was particularly clever or timely. I've also left out entries that I, as an American, don't have the proper European cultural background to appropriately dissect. So, for instance, in Culto with Eastern European funk, Cosa Mostra's Alcohol is Free, and that one Romani guy from the Czech Republic. I left those kinds of entries out because I'm not from Europe and I don't think I can really understand the cultural context well enough to analyze them. But they are satire and do otherwise fit most of my criteria. So, real quickly, here's a couple of honorable mentions. I've decided to arrange these entries in order by year so that we can get a picture of the history of satire on the Eurovision stage and see how it and its perception has evolved over the years. So without further ado, let's appreciate some high art. The first Eurovision Song Contest was held in 1956, meaning that there are over 1,500 songs that have competed at Eurovision. According to their website, if you would listen to all the songs without a break, you would be sitting up for nearly 72 hours. I was not going to sit up for 72 hours to find the first satirical entry at Eurovision. Instead, I took the coward's way out and spent almost that much time Googling the first satirical entry at Eurovision. So we're starting our journey in 1977, when Austria sent Schmetterlinge with the song Boom Boom Boomerang. Schmetterlinge, which translates from German to The Butterflies, was a Viennese folk rock group known for their political commentary, because there's no other reason to listen to folk rock. One of their members, Beatrix Nunlinger, had already represented Austria at Eurovision as part of the group The Milestones 5 years before in 1972. Like many of the entries from this era of the contest, Boom Boom Boomerang seems subdued by modern standards, if a little campy. It has a very innocent facade and doesn't immediately jump out at you as being a subversive or hard-hitting entry. And that's what makes it the perfect introduction to what satire at Eurovision is all about. Because beneath its nonsense chorus and almost childlike instrumentals, Boom Boom Boomerang hides a scathing critique of one of the best things you can criticize at an internationally televised music competition: the commercial music industry. The song starts with a light, airy harmony pronouncing that music is love for you and me, before hitting you with an equally airy but much darker line: music is money for the record company. It's important to note that these are some of the only coherent lines in the song that are sung in English, so audiences who only speak English just have to sit with that one line until the chorus kicks in. The verses, sung in German, talk about how much people love music and how much record companies like to make money off of people that love music. So Big Brother's voice spoke. Smash hits for girls and boys. Doesn't get much clearer than that. What I love about this song is its almost self-deprecating humor. It follows all the conventions of a light, folksy pop song from the era. And the chorus, the only part of the song besides the intro that's in English, is deliberately designed to be as inoffensive and easy to sing along to as possible, thereby hiding the darker message lurking underneath. And it's the fact that they submitted this to Eurovision that really elevates it. Because don't forget that ABBA, the most successful Eurovision entry of all time, had won only 3 years prior in 1974, with a song that sounds a lot like this one. Waterloo was a smash hit, breaking out of European containment to top charts all around the world, and it remains the most well-known and beloved of all Eurovision songs. It's also a light and airy 70s bubblegum pop track that made a lot of people in the music industry a whole lot of money. If you wanted to take this a step further, you could say that Schmetterlinge wasn't just critiquing the music industry, but Eurovision for propping up this industry with commercially successful winners like ABBA, that in some people's eyes, not me, but some people, are all marketable style and no substance. Speaking of style, let's talk about these stage outfits. The male chorus members start out wearing these very 70s ensembles with hearts on the chests, until they start talking about the record companies, at which point they turn around to reveal business suits with attached hands holding stacks of cash and horrifying, lifeless plastic faces on the backs of their heads. It's brilliant staging. During the poppy, nonsensical chorus, when everything is happy and marketable and sickly positive, the group dances in this stiff, almost uncanny way that resembles marionettes. They're musicians literally being forced to dance like puppets on a string for their record label overlords. But when it's time to make that paper, the terrifying plastic music pimps come out to take their cut. Pippa Armstrong keeps this unnerving smile on her face the whole time, and it only further serves to make the song feel much darker than the upbeat music would lead you to believe it is. I guess the juries weren't too happy with being called out like this though, because they gave Austria and Schmetterlinge second to last place with 11 points. Schmetterlinge is the perfect jumping off point to the world of Eurovision satire, because these same trends of substance over scoring and being committed to your sarcastically delivered point no matter the outcome are really going to be the defining characteristics of this type of entry going forward. This group also got the ball rolling for other artists to start satirizing the Eurovision Song Competition itself in their entries. And no one did that with quite as much smug satisfaction as our next competitor. The early 80s was an important time in the world of music. The compact disc was changing the way people listened to music, and possibly inspiring an adorable Finnish man's future wardrobe. In the dark recesses of Reagan's USA, a young parodist with big glasses and bigger hair becomes a guest on the Dr. Demento radio show, ushering in a new age of enlightenment. And an ironic synth-pop group from Belgium is about to change the Eurovision Song Contest forever. Formed in 1978 by Mikkel Moors, Dan Laxman, and Mark Molin, Telex was a group wholly unconcerned with commercial popularity, which is funny because they're often credited as being some of the founders of the European electronic scene. They mainly dabbled in sterile techno remixes of old dance songs that were just dripping with irony, kind of like a mix of Devo and Kraftwerk. They always exuded this sense of cynicism and unbothered sarcasm. So when their manager asked them to represent Belgium at the Eurovision Song Contest in 1980, they had one goal and one goal only: last place. Telex has the distinction of being the first true joke entry at Eurovision, and that's using my definition of a joke entry. A song that is entered into the contest with a poor placement as the explicitly intended punchline. As far as I can tell, they were the true pioneers of intentionally bad Eurovision songs. And we can attribute the next 40 years of chaos to their shining example. Telex never intended to do well, but that doesn't mean that they didn't make a stone-cold masterpiece with Eurovision. Eurovision is also the first song to mention the contest by name, over and over and over again. The song is just one hilariously bland lyric after another, backed up by the catchiest synth possible. The lyrics, sung in French, are just the driest, vintage Eurovision-based humor you've ever heard in your life. Music on the program, may the best win. The stars are nervous, they do their makeup and smoke a cigarette. Eurovision, dun, 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 Eurovision. It's so stupid. But like with so many other Eurovision bangers, what makes this entry a masterpiece isn't so much the song, but the performance. Mark, Dan, and Mikkel take the stage in these incredibly snazzy suits and ivory scarves, and proceed to sway back and forth for the next 3 minutes while Mark Molin delivers the most hilariously self-satisfied performance of anything I have ever seen in my life. He sings this song with all the non-interest and smug charisma of a billionaire at a charity ball, and then congratulates himself on his epic win by dipping into his stash of pocket confetti and throwing it over himself at the end of the song. The pocket confetti is what really gets me because I did a shot-for-shot remake of this entry a few months ago just here in my room, and I did the pocket confetti, and I'm still finding pocket confetti on my carpet. And this is a new carpet. The real cherry on top is when he takes out a disposable camera and snaps a picture of the audience for posterity, thereby turning them into the spectacle for choosing to watch such a ridiculous display as the Eurovision Song Contest. The contest wasn't always the worldwide spectacle that it is today, and this entry does a really good job of sending up the popular perception of the Eurovision Song Contest at the time. A night of self-satisfied, candy-colored culture for all of Europe to enjoy, where they pat themselves on the back for being good neighbors to one another and supporting the arts, and then forget about it the next day. In the translated words of Telex, old Europe cheers, the country that wins, then a tear, the spell is broken. It ultimately means nothing, but it's a good time for a good 2 hours or so. This is also one of the few Eurovision songs where the English version is just as good, if not better in some ways. While the English release of Eurovision is actually pretty close to the French, it also includes such timely lyrics as "Berlin, why don't you fall in love with us? Write our name on the wall," and "The poor, the rich too, trust in the panel, no use to switch to another channel." Unfortunately for Telex, they did not get their wish of coming in last. They received 10 points from Portugal, 3 from Greece, and 1 from the UK for a placing of 17th out of 19 countries. I'm very attached to this entry for its multiple layers of humor and its staunch commitment to ironic sarcasm. I love the giant synthesizer equipment on stage, I love their very classy outfits, and Mark's facial expressions are pure gold. It's a more laid-back version of comedy than what we're going to see coming up. And I think this kind of quietly mocking humor can be very effective when it's done properly.
Guildo Horn schlägt und wenn's auch mal Tränen gibt.
And then we have this guy. Before I continue with this next entry, let's take a break for a second to mansplain a definition or two. Partly because we're exploring a slightly new type of satirical comedy with this next entry, and partly because I see the following terms used interchangeably way too much and it drives me nuts. They do overlap, but they do not mean the same thing. So let's go off topic for just a second for a very quick lesson. As we've already discussed, in comedy specifically, because we do see satire in some other artistic forms, satire is a comedic critique of something. So it's a mockery of a person, a concept, an idea, or society as a whole, and uses comedy as a vessel to deliver a message of some kind or to make a point about something in the real world. If you can't connect it to the real world, it's not satire. Parody is a send-up of a specific thing. It doesn't always have a central message or theme, it's just making fun. But it's making fun of something very specific, usually an already existing piece of media. In order for something to be parody, it has to mock or exaggerate an already existing work or idea. If you can't name the specific thing it's making fun of, it's not parody. Pastiche is a work that copies a specific style, but it's not always done in a mocking way. And if it is, it's more of a light ribbing than a full-on parody. Pastiche can and often is used to pay homage to an existing work by imitating its most defining characteristics. We see pastiche often in the world of art and film, but it's usually done as a form of tribute, whereas in comedy, it has more of an element of playfulness. It can overlap with parody when elements of comedy are involved, which makes it tricky to define without knowing the comedian's intent. It's like a friendlier version of parody that relies on imitating style. If it doesn't imitate defining features of an artistic style, it's not pastiche. These concepts absolutely can and often do overlap with each other, but that doesn't mean that you can always use these terms interchangeably to mean the same thing. Not all parody is satire, not all satire is parody, and pastiche can be both or neither. I understand that is incredibly confusing, and it doesn't really matter to anyone except me, but it does lead into our next entry. Let's see if you were paying attention during that last info dump and can name the style of comedy that this next entry utilizes. Our next song uses comedy to playfully mock a certain style of popular music that was known for winning Eurovision for several decades. The style it mocks, while popular and well-loved, is sometimes criticized for being artistically shallow and having little variation in theme or messaging. Our entry also uses and exaggerates specific characteristics of winning songs, but it makes its point in a way that balances tribute and playfulness. Now, what kind of comedy style does the next entry use? I'll give you a moment. If you guessed all three, congratulations! You're on the right track to understanding some of the different types of transformative comedy. Give yourself a pat on the back if you can reach that far. Ow. Guildo hat euch lieb is an interesting point in satirical Eurovision history because it made fun of something beloved while also playfully celebrating that something in a way that made people laugh, and was ultimately rewarded for it in a way that elevated it to satire. Eurovision now encompasses a wide variety of music, and a winning song can be anything from an operatic breakup ballad to an apocalyptic metal anthem. But back in the day, there was one genre that really ruled the show, and that was Schlager. As an American, I had kind of a hard time understanding what Schlager actually was. So I'm going to do what every good essayist on YouTube does and let the fine contributors of Wikipedia.com sum it up for me. Schlager is a type of music popular in Europe, generally defined by catchy instrumental accompaniments to vocal pieces of pop music with simple, easygoing, and often sentimental lyrics. From the way I understand it, it's kind of like American bubblegum pop. Very sweet, almost kind of saccharine and radio-friendly. Saccharin? Is it saccharin or saccharine? I went to college, I should know that. Anyway, from the 70s through the 2000s, Schlager music dominated Eurovision. And it's not hard to see why. It's catchy, non-controversial, and its simple format and lyrical style is easily accessible to a multilingual audience. As with anything popular, it was only a matter of time before someone decided that this sort of sickeningly friendly Eurovision entry needed to be laughed at. That time was 1998. And that someone was the sensational super sock of German television himself, Stefan Raab.
Sensational super sock of German television, Stefan Raab! Oh my God! He is real! Yeah!
Raab would actually go on to represent Germany himself in the 2000 edition of the contest with another lightly satirical comedy song. But for this edition, he wrote an entry for charismatic Schlager singer Guildo Horn and his band, the Orthopedic Stockings. Guildo hat euch lieb, which translates from German to Guildo loves you all, doesn't take a lot of brain power to understand, and that's kind of the point. It's a playful pastiche of Schlager music, and that's about it. But that's also all it really needs to be. Guildo just loves everyone. A whole lot. And he's not going to shut up until he's really driven home this central point. Much like the style it so perfectly imitates, the song is bouncy, repetitive, and easy to get along with lyrics that translate to things like, Guildo loves you, so even if there are tears, he'll come over and sing songs for you, and I'd send you the proof of my love, nut cookies and raspberry ice cream. It's not exactly a hard-hitting social critique, but it doesn't really need to be. It knows its point. Schlager music is silly but fun, and gets it across while being hugely entertaining thanks to Guildo Horn's fittingly over-the-top stage antics. Guildo hat euch lieb actually made a very impressive showing for a comedy entry, placing 7th in the 1998 edition out of 25 countries. Is that because it was a Schlager song that followed the rules of past well-placing songs, thereby making it an accidental satire of itself? I mean, maybe. Don't look at me, I'm not an expert, I'm just a YouTuber who likes the sound of my own voice. Satire isn't always deep or controversial or buried under 5 layers of irony. Sometimes it's just a guy in green velvet pants climbing up a sound tower and breaking the rules of stage safety.
Congratulations, I have arrived. I'm Silvia Night, and
When it comes to Eurovision, there are several ways to become a timeless legend. Maybe you're the people's champion runner-up whose 11th hour defeat gives you fan-favorite immortality. Maybe you're the sacrificial lamb in a controversial contest year whose treatment makes you a public hero and rallies others to demand change. Maybe you and your magical jorts literally set the stage on fire with your unmatched aura and superhuman riz. Or maybe, if you're really lucky, you piss off the entire European continent and cause widespread rage and turmoil, the likes of which haven't been seen since ping pong told everyone to be happy. The story of Silvia Night is a wild one. Born in Reykjavik in a different league, Silvia Night was a world-famous actress, pop star, model, and TV personality, but there was one thing still missing from her perfect life of glitter and fame, and that was the Eurovision trophy. So Silvia did what any self-respecting girl boss would do and set out to claim what was rightfully hers, leaving in her wake a path of destruction and chaos that would have made even Martin Osterdahl feel inadequate. See, Silvia didn't just compete in the 2006 edition of Eurovision. She went to Athens and proceeded to scream, slap, and insult her way through the competition, making enemies left and right and causing widespread public outcry. She fought with journalists, accused other contestants of sleeping with the head of the EBU, and threatened to jump off a bridge when she failed to qualify for the finals. Silvia Night was the epitome of 2000's celebrity moral hysteria. She was perhaps the most badly behaved contestant the competition has ever seen. She also didn't technically exist. Created in 2005 by director Gaukur Ulfarsson and actress Augusta Eva Erlendsdottir. Ooh, I think I actually pronounced those right. Don't tell me if I didn't, I was proud of that. The Silvia Night Show was a satirical Icelandic television interview show hosted by the titular Silvia. If you remember the 2000s, you probably also remember 2000s celebrity culture. The crash outs, the narcissism, the focus on extreme wealth and materialism, and most of all, the voyeuristic way that everyday people consumed celebrity. The 2000s was a time when bad celebrity behavior was encouraged and rewarded even more so than it is today. And Silvia Night was created as a reaction to the culture that would enable this kind of behavior. And when Silvia went to one of the biggest, most televised events in the world, Augusta didn't drop the act for 1 second. Even before she arrived in Athens, she was making trouble. Her song, Congratulations, isn't even so much a song as it is Silvia singing her own praises. Throughout the 3-minute runtime, she extols her greatness while reminding her adoring public to vote for their hero. Funnily enough, she's not the only one in 2006 to just directly beg for votes in her song, but we'll get to that in a little bit. She assures us that her song is totally cool, really not too gay, and that she's no damn Eurotrash freak. And when the competition started, Augusta still didn't drop the act. Here's some of Silvia Night's greatest hits. Having a reporter carried out of a press conference for looking her in the eye, accusing the Swedish contestant, Carola, of having sex with the head of the EBU in a car and also copying everything Silvia does. Scaring the crap out of the EBU every rehearsal by keeping the F-bomb in her song. Granted, Augusta did know when to quit and she censored the F-bomb during, the actual competition, but still, she kept those guys on their toes. Threatening to sue a randomly chosen reporter and send them to jail. Slapping her Argentinian Giga Chad boyfriend, Romario Hugo Estevez, played by Icelandic actor Bjorn Thors, when she failed to qualify and then threatening to yeet herself off a bridge. I can't with Silvia. Saying she'd seen Lordi without their makeup and they were f***ing ugly. Finland later gave Silvia 7 points in the semifinal. Silvia's insulting behavior was so bad that when she took the stage for the semifinal, she was greeted with a massive roar of gleeful booing. Of course, such a thing could never happen today. But Silvia doesn't let Europe's fury stop her. Instead, she basks in the negative energy like a Sailor Moon villain and lets it propel her to even greater heights of unbeatable power. It's the kind of performance you just can't replicate. From the obligatory costume change to the golden shower to sliding down a giant high heel, it's just a masterclass in bad taste. In the middle of the song, she gets a phone call from God, just dropping in to say hi to their favorite person in the world. But the real highlight of Silvia's performance is the end, when she responds to another chorus of boos with,
You, my European children!
and then again to another round of booing.
I love you! Thank you for loving me!
Now, we can look at the story of Silvia Night in a number of different ways, and I think all of them can be true. First of all, it is undeniable that Augusta is an incredibly talented performance artist, and this was a piece of performance art. I found several interviews with Augusta done after Eurovision where she talked a little bit about the act, and they were really interesting. For one thing, the press and stage crew that Silvia had run-ins with were all actually in on the act. Some, like the reporter who got carried out by her security guy, had scripted parts. And others, like a mic operator who she yelled at during rehearsals, were aware that Silvia was a character and played along with her abuse. But there were others, including the other contestants, that weren't a part of it and didn't consent to being included in the act, even if they figured out that Silvia was a character. So, did Augusta and her team go too far with this? In my very personal opinion, no. And I realize that's a controversial take when you look at some of the things that Silvia said about the other contestants, but here's the thing. Just hear me out for a second. Silvia was obviously a character. It's very hard to look at her behavior and to look at her song and not realize that this was a bit. Even the things she said about the other contestants were so over the top that they could only be seen as being satirical and not meant to be taken seriously. While I can see how accusing a fellow contestant of sleeping their way to the finals is definitely problematic, it becomes obvious that it's not a real accusation when she follows it up by saying that Carola is the reason she didn't qualify and that Carola has been copying her ever since she got here. She also claimed people voted for Treble and not her because she's not a slut from Holland, even though Treble didn't qualify either and actually did worse than Silvia. I don't think she was mocking the other contestants or trying to get the other contestants into trouble. She was obviously mocking the kind of celebrity that would say those kinds of things and making a point about the kind of person who would say those things and get press coverage for doing so. And she got press coverage for doing so, thereby proving her point. And that brings us to the most successful and accidentally brilliant part of this entire charade, and that is the public's reaction to Silvia Night. The public is what really sold the satire of this act and the character. Because as much as they hated Silvia, they were also greatly entertained by her and to this day find her to be one of the most memorable Eurovision entries out there. They proved her point for her by making a spectacle out of their hatred for her and giving her more attention the worse she acted, just like the celebrities she was critiquing in the first place. The saga of Silvia Night is one of my favorite Eurovision stories of all time, because the act was such a product of its time and really captured that era of celebrity culture and toxic media landscapes so well. It was honestly brilliant how she managed to stay perfectly in character throughout her entire Eurovision journey, and how she became so iconic and memorable even though she didn't even qualify. She was nothing if not committed to the bit and committed to the punchline up until the very end. And that is the kind of thing that legends are made of.
We are the winners of Eurovision.
We are.
One of the most important lessons any comedian can learn is that sometimes the best jokes are the simplest. And sometimes the most effective target isn't the biggest or most powerful one. It's yourself. Silvia Night wasn't the only artist to try a more direct approach towards winning over televoters in 2006. There was another group from Lithuania who believed they had found the perfect formula for winning Eurovision. And that formula was to just declare yourself the winner. LT United was a group of 6 all-star Lithuanian entertainers brought together specifically to enter Eurovision. They won the national selection competition with a landslide 32,669 votes, almost twice the amount of votes for the runner-up, another comedic song by the band Inculto, who would go on to represent Lithuania in 2008. What can I say? The Lithuanians love fun, except for when they love misery. Shout out to Catharsis. Now, while they have sent some absolutely iconic bops, Lithuania isn't exactly known for doing well in Eurovision. They finished last their first year participating in 1994, and in 2005, they failed to qualify entirely. In fact, they didn't just fail to qualify, they finished dead last in the semifinal. Now, when you finish last at Eurovision, you can do one of a couple of things. You can either go back to Norway and lick your wounds and give it your best go the next time around, or you can just say, screw it, we're actually the winners, and hope for a self-fulfilling prophecy. LT United picked the second option. We Are the Winners is unironically one of the funniest Eurovision entries of all time. These 6 mad lads get up on that stage and emphatically insist for 3 minutes that they are the winners of Eurovision and you gotta vote for the winners. And it's of course all sold using the most unserious staging I have ever seen. They just stand there in a line and tell you straight up, they are the winners of Eurovision. Every once in a while, one of them will pull a Mark Molin and smugly smirk at the camera. Halfway through the song, one guy starts yelling into his mic through a megaphone like he's Bart Simpson in that one bit. Then this dude, who up until this point has just been stoically standing there listening to the others state their case, walks out to center stage like he's a bouncer on Jerry Springer and just absolutely breaks it down while another guy plays the fiddle. But I'm 80% sure that the instrument you hear is actually an electric guitar. Then he goblin walks back to his place in line as the Alpha Chad energy leaves his body. It's iconic. So, what makes We Are the Winners a satire? Well, the fact that it's Lithuania's best placement in the contest to date. That's right, these guys actually convinced enough people to vote for them just by telling them to, that they came in 6th in the 2006 competition, and no Lithuanian entry has ever unseated them. Not even The Roop, a fan favorite with Discotheque in 2021, matched this placement, coming in 8th. Now, you could make the incredibly boring argument that 2006 was a different time. The competition was smaller, the voting pool was smaller, but the point still stands that through the power of self-deprecating sarcasm, LT United managed to convince the public to vote them all the way to 6th place out of 24 countries, 37 if you count the non-qualifiers, just by repeatedly ordering them to. I'll be honest, I don't really know what my takeaway from this entry is. I just know that it means something. Believe in yourself and think positive, I guess. Do you like the sticker on my water bottle? They're really cute. I make them myself, and you can get them off my Etsy. Just saying. Okay, I should probably put the lid back on. As long as we're on the topic of true joke entries and self-deprecation, let's talk about the 2008 edition of the Eurovision Song Contest. Oh my god, I'm trying to read my script, and the EA app will not stop sending me notifications. No, I don't want to play The Sims 4. Go away. I don't even want to play The Sims 4 when I want to play The Sims 4. Okay, anyway, the 2008 edition of Eurovision was interesting, to say the least. You know that B-plot in the story of Fire Saga where that one member of the Icelandic committee doesn't want to send a good entry because they might win and therefore have to host the next year's contest? While it's never been genuinely confirmed that countries do this, this supposed practice of participating for the advantages of the competition but doing badly on purpose to avoid hosting has been a well-known conspiracy theory within the Eurovision community for decades. I want to reiterate, this is a theory. While artists do sometimes aim for last place for whatever reason, I don't think a country has ever actually admitted to doing this on purpose to avoid hosting, especially when countries have hosted on behalf of others that lacked the infrastructure many times. But this theory would explain what happened to Eurovision in 2008. I'm not going to explain the details of this because I don't really understand them, and there is just no need for me to research and understand the ins and outs of the Eurozone recession. But from 2007 to 2009, there was this big global recession, and Europe wasn't immune to it. Basically, a lot of countries lost a lot of money, and that's all we really need to know for our purposes. Now, Eurovision is expensive. I found a CNBC article claiming that in 2023, the cost for the UK to host Eurovision on behalf of Ukraine was estimated to be around $30 million US. Full research disclosure, I'm not about to go digging around trying to figure out how much it would have cost for the winning country to host the contest in 2009 because the exact numbers aren't really the point here. The point is that everyone agrees that Eurovision is incredibly expensive. And it's generally accepted that even with the revenue and tourism that it brings in, it's still a huge responsibility for the winning country. So with that in mind, I can kind of see how people would use the purposefully losing theory to explain Eurovision 2008. Because in 2008, there was an odd number of truly just strange acts. I'm not even talking about comedy entries here. I'm talking about entries that no one would ever vote for. Even some of the more grounded entries were just weird or not very good. Don't get me wrong, I love the 2008 competition because of how outlandish it was, but it was a mess. Also, the entire final is up on YouTube if you want to watch it and see what I'm talking about. And what really makes 2008 stand out for me with its novelty acts is that it was largely countries that usually sent more conventional radio-friendly entries. Spain gave us a dude with a pompadour and a kid's electronic guitar. France sent this guy to do helium on stage in one of my favorite ever acts. And Ireland, which had dominated Eurovision throughout the 90s with 4 wins in a winning streak from 1992 to 94, sent a sock puppet in the vague shape of a turkey. Dustin the Turkey was a popular Irish TV host puppeteered by creator John Morrison. He first debuted as a children's television host, but became popular with adults. So popular that he embarked on a musical and political career, including 6 albums and a campaign in the 1997 Irish presidential election. Spoiler alert, he did not win. Dustin's next big stop was Eurovision, where he claimed that he was going to put Ireland back on top in their rightful place as the kings of the contest. Irlande 12 points, or Ireland 12 points, is the song that made it clear that Ireland, a country hit hard by the economic recession, had no intention of reclaiming their royalty anytime soon. It's a very deliberate mockery of the contest, but it has none of the bouncy charm or sardonic, tongue-in-cheek humor of Guildo Horn or Telex. There is nothing likable about Irlande 12 points, which ironically is what makes it so memorable. It's a good example of a deliberate joke song that doesn't want to do well, and further than that, is willing to offend people to keep from doing well. It's chaotic, loud, and discordant, with Dustin shouting Irlande 12 points over and over until it finally comes to a screeching halt over the turkey imploring different countries by name to vote for Ireland. It's making it very clear that Ireland does not want to win this contest an 8th time. While this entry is undoubtedly terrible, it's also clever in its own way. Most other satires of Eurovision approached the subject by making fun of typical Eurovision conventions. The poppy music, the camp, the obligatory final verse key change. But this entry chose not to necessarily mock the competition, but to make a mockery of the competition by being 3 minutes of sonic misery. And it doesn't just make a mockery of Eurovision, it purposefully mocks its own country, with lines like, "Give us another chance, we're sorry for Riverdance," and "Drag acts and bad acts and Terry Wogan's wig." It laughs at the popular perception of Ireland in the competition, while completely subverting all people's expectations for Ireland as a competitor. For those of you on the edge of your seats, no, Dustin did not win. He failed to qualify entirely, coming in 37th in the semifinal out of 43 countries. But Ireland wasn't the only country intent on crashing and burning in 2008. And it wasn't the only entry willing to viciously satirize Eurovision and offend the sensibilities of the entire competition in order to do so. 2008 was really the year for just making people mad. Estonia's entry in 2008 is widely regarded as one of the worst Eurovision entries of all time. And unlike a few other acts in this video that I will defend to the death, I'm not going to pretend that that opinion is entirely wrong. Kreisiraadio was a popular comedy trio with a wide range of media credits in their native Estonia, including radio, television, and film. And I guess all roads led to Eurovision in the 2000s, so that's where they ended up. I guess Estonia didn't want to host during a recession any more than Ireland did, or Spain, or Latvia, or France. They entered the competition with the song Letos Vet, and I'm not going to bother talking about the lyrics too much because there's nothing to really talk about. It's a mix of nonsense German, Serbian, and Finnish, and it's really just incoherent gibberish. It's not funny, it's not endearing, it's just confusing and kind of annoying. So why am I talking about this terrible entry at all? Because an attempt was made to satirize some of the popular Eurovision tropes at the time. And even though I don't think it was a successfully funny attempt, it does give you a good idea of what Eurovision was like in the 2000s. Lyrics in a foreign language that very few people can understand and that sound like gibberish to everyone else? Check. Scantily clad women who add nothing of note to the performance? Check. Too many props and a copious amount of flags on stage? Check. Several instruments that sit there conspicuously but don't ever actually get played? Check. Destroying an accordion in the only moment in this performance that actually made me laugh? Check. To give credit where it's due, Letos Vet knew what it wanted to satirize and an attempt was made. Whether it did so well is another question entirely, one that the public answered when they awarded them second to last place in the semifinal. They only got 8 points, and 7 of those came from Finland, because of course they did. Of course, the other question we have to ask in regards to this entry is whether or not they wanted to make a successful satire. Because don't forget, this was 2008, and not every country wants to go quite so far as blowing up Demi Lovato's yacht to avoid hosting. Some countries just want to hump a piano to get out of footing the bill, and I think that's okay. There are some satirical Eurovision acts that, deliberately bad or not, kind of deserve to be remembered among the worst entries. This next artist is not one of them. Sent by Montenegro in 2012, Urdo Nurdo is another song that is often considered to be one of the worst and most divisive Eurovision entries. The critics complain that it's dissonant, chaotic, and just a bunch of random noise and rambling. To them I say, monetary breakdance. I will not hear a word against this song because it's brilliant, and I think it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say that satirical comedy can be a really good form of political protest in a space where that kind of discussion is usually frowned upon. Born Antonie Pusic, I really hope I said that right, it sounded right. Rambo Amadeus, also known as Rambo Amadeus the World Kilo Tsar, and formerly Rambo Amadeus the World Mega Tsar, is an Estonian satirist and an accomplished sailor. He didn't originally want to go to Eurovision, but when he was internally selected, he decided he'd do it, but on his own terms. As his entry to Eurovision 2012, Rambo created Urdo Nurdo, a song that is notable for being one of the most intensely political entries ever to make it to the contest. See, usually songs including political messaging or themes aren't allowed at Eurovision, but there have been several cases of comedy songs managing to circumvent this rule. And this goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning of the video, that people don't tend to view comedy as a serious art form to be analyzed. Meaning that if you're clever, you can sneak in a lot of political messaging and get around the rules. And this is exactly what Rambo did. Urdo Nurdo is a song about the European debt crisis, and more specifically, the relationship between the European Union and smaller countries such as Montenegro. So, from the way I understand it, after admittedly very minimal research, the EU at this time wanted more financial contributions from all countries to help solve widespread issues such as climate change and international debt. But this put an undue burden on small or historically struggling countries such as those in Eastern Europe and the Balkans, which had trouble fixing their own local economies and living conditions and didn't have the resources to worry about everyone else. Now, I'm not going to pretend to fully grasp all the details of the situation because I don't, and it isn't really relevant anyway, because the common person's lack of ability to understand such a huge concept is central to the meaning of this song. In the words of Rambo himself, the song is directed to everyone feeling a bit nervous about not being able to understand things like the financial roots of the Eurozone crisis. The music video for Urdo Nurdo follows Rambo as a common Montenegrin peasant wandering around and being confused by the intense displays of frivolous wealth all around him. It's meant to not only symbolize wealth disparity, but to satirize the EU and Western Europe's expectations on smaller countries to help bail them out. After all, how are you supposed to help solve climate change and international debt when your country lacks a working infrastructure and all you have is a donkey? The lyrics of the song are indeed rambling and weird, and that's just another part of the layered satire. It's a pseudo-rap with Rambo delivering the lines in monotone, broken English interspersed with discordant traditional Balkan instruments. There are lots of big English words that aren't always used in a way that makes sense, including overuse of the suffix ism to mock the out-of-touch and largely performative language used by big, important organizations such as the European Union. And once he took the Eurovision stage, Rambo just kept adding more and more ridiculous layers to the joke. He comes out on stage in a black cloak with a hood to this sinister string music while laughing evilly. It's like he knew exactly what the EBU would turn into in 2024 and was just getting ahead of the meme. You can even see his drummer in the background trying to hold it together. There's not much to the staging, but there doesn't really need to be. There's a Trojan donkey over in the corner, and the joke is that you're supposed to think it's going to be the big central prop to this act, but he never even acknowledges it, which is hilarious and symbolic of the institution's refusal to acknowledge the concerns of the working class. It's kind of like how Andy Kaufman's bongos just got funnier the longer he ignored them. There's also a guy breakdancing, and near the end, these other guys wrap him up in the banners and carry him away. Just like Telex 30 years before, Rambo Amadeus was very upfront about his goal for Eurovision. I got no ambition for high position in the competition with air condition. And he got his wish. Montenegro finished 15th out of 18 countries in the semi-final, failing to qualify and winning a frankly unfair placement on pretty much every top 10 worst Eurovision songs list I've ever seen. Avant-garde satire isn't for everyone, but I think Rambo Amadeus was a visionary and that this entry stands the test of time as a reluctant legend of snark, no matter what WatchMojo.com says. Rambo Amadeus wasn't the only artist to bring an explicitly political message to a supposedly apolitical competition. And even his efforts look like a jury-friendly unity ballad in comparison to our next entry. When Russia invaded the Ukraine in 2022, it forced Eurovision to change in ways that we had never seen before, and suddenly made the competition a lot more political than it supposedly had been in the past. Russia was banned from participating, and when Ukraine won by a landslide in that year's competition, the UK stepped in to host for them in 2023, for obvious reasons. Say what you will about the UK, they always come in clutch when you need them. The war in Ukraine had a strong emotional and thematic impact on the 2023 competition. Several countries sent songs dedicated to Ukraine, and the overall theme of a lot of entries was decidedly more political than usual. But no one, and I mean no one, tested the limits of the no politics rule like Croatia and Let 3. Let 3 is a Croatian punk and shock rock band that is no stranger to controversy. They were once sanctioned by police for performing a concert nude, but contested the charges by saying they weren't really nude because they had corks up their asses and asked the public to provide photo evidence to get them off the hook. They are a bunch of complete mad lads, and they provided us with one of the best anti-war satires I have ever seen. This entry is iconic. So iconic, in fact, that Alessandra, who you'll remember from Queen of the Kings, Norway's 2023 entry, actually performed it at Dora, the Croatian national final, this past season as an interval act. The screams heard in this house when we realized what she was singing, man. Mama Shch is an anti-war song, but instead of singing about peace and love, they sing about tractors. And instead of dressing like hippies, they dress like dictators and smeared makeup. Take this with a grain of salt because I couldn't find it linked to a reliable source. But I read somewhere that they weren't allowed to perform in military uniforms like they originally wanted, which makes sense. They were already really pushing it with this song. So they made these wild outfits that just invoked the idea of different famous dictators instead. Again, I don't have a reliable source for that, so please take it with a grain of salt. I just thought it was an interesting explanation that actually makes a lot of sense. Anyway, this song is great because it's catchy and it's really easy for anyone to learn how to sing. I know all the words to this song and I can sing it. I won't, but I could if I wanted to, and that's what matters. The lyrics are intentionally very simple and the wording is almost childlike. It's meant to resemble the kind of language you might hear in a lullaby or a nursery rhyme, and uses this style to satirize how dictators and military leaders treat war as a children's game and people's lives as playthings, eventually turning the entire world into a playground for crocodile psychopaths. Now, we've seen songs about war bad at Eurovision before. Everyone loves a good anti-war anthem. But what makes this entry notable is how it's very clearly about one particular current war. For Vladimir Putin's 70th birthday, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko presented him with a tractor, which is almost as weird as supporting one country's unwarranted aggression towards another country, but go off, I guess. Hence, Mama kupi la traktora. Alongside copious references to Putin's new farm equipment, we get the obvious allusion to Mother Russia in the repeated usage of the word mama and a recitation of the Russian alphabet. While I haven't been able to find a concrete meaning for the sh, it can be taken as a reference to a sound that is only common in the Russian language. A guy with the word Lenin on his forehead comes out with a giant rocket. Are you kidding me? The entry is obviously a Russian diss track. And despite how supportive of Ukraine the competition that year was, I don't think anyone but a shock comedy group could have gotten away with it. The shock factor and wildly nonsensical energy and obvious humor of the entire performance helps to deliver an otherwise difficult and possibly controversial message to an audience who is just there to have fun, which is one of the most brilliant and effective uses of satire. Tell everyone war is bad, and most people will agree with you, but won't really remember exactly what you said. Make fun of Vladimir Putin for getting a tractor for his birthday and call him a whiny little piss baby, and you'll make the top 15 in the grand final. That's right, these mad lads came in 13th, which is really a great placement for something as out there and provocative as this performance. The juries, unsurprisingly, only gave them 11 points, but the televote gave them 112, showing that once again, comedy is the voice of the people. Which brings us very neatly to this year's edition of the Eurovision Song Contest. Despite the clear and obvious nonsense that was that final vote, this year was a pretty good year. We got dragons, dudes covered in dirt running on treadmills, unclear censorship rules, and Erika Vikman. But most importantly, in my opinion, the 69th Eurovision Song Contest was a great year for nonsense. Ireland gave us a tribute to a dancing dog in space. Australia blessed us with a man extolling the virtues of milkshakes. Except they're probably not actually milkshakes, and it's probably something else entirely, because this year was the 69th Eurovision Song Contest. Iceland, which was totally robbed, and I'll never stop complaining about it, brought us two meme lords singing the Icelandic version of I'm on a Boat while giving the Minecraft movie free international advertising. And Sweden, the country of bland formulaic pop, the country of Loreen, the country that I still believe mathematically configures all their entries to be the most basic radio-friendly pop imaginable in order to cater to the jury vote, sent 3 Finnish guys singing about how great saunas are. And they did amazing. This year was the year that really showed that comedy belongs at Eurovision and always has. And in my opinion, no one did that better than Estonia's favorite and most unserious party rapper, Tommy Cash. If you've been around the Eurovision sphere long enough, you're probably no stranger to Tommy Cash, aka Don Tommaso, aka Kanye East. Even though he hadn't been to the competition himself before this year, he's collaborated with a bunch of big-name people and is best friends with the people's champion himself, Kadia, as well as the other people's champion, Joost. In fact, I have a theory that our dear Joost is a part of this story, but I'll get to that here in a bit. So when Tommy announced his bid for Eesti Laul, the Estonian national selection, we all knew he was a shoo-in. Did I watch it live anyway and nearly spill my espresso macchiato when he won? You're damn right I did. Espresso macchiato is a very layered entry, and it was a shockingly controversial one. People with no sense of media literacy got really uptight about it and were unflinchingly convinced that it was making fun of Italians because the song uses a lot of incorrect Italian and Italian-sounding words that aren't actually Italian. People even started rumors that Italians were calling for the song to be banned from Eurovision. But then Italy was one of 3 countries to give Estonia 17 points in the grand final, so explain that. Anyway, espresso macchiato isn't about Italians. It's not even about coffee. It's about Donald Trump. Actually, it's about all business bros, hustlers, and billionaire bootlickers, with a sprinkle of out-of-touch celebrity ego to act as the whisper of sarcastic cinnamon on top. Tommy Cash is a master of making a point by saying one thing that really means something else. Take, for instance, the whole Italian thing. What group of annoying, egocentric people likes to brag about their Italian suits, their Italian wingtips, their Italian ties and coffee and cars and whatever else they can claim on their income tax? And don't say Italians. The aesthetic of espresso macchiato isn't remotely authentically Italian. This isn't Gabri Ponte, but it is every other member of the Forbes Top 200. Who likes to brag about their money numeroso, but also likes to tell the everyday people struggling to pay their rent that they're really just like them. They may like to fly privati with 24 carati, but they also just own a little ristorante and work around the clocko. Who acts like they need giant security guards with foam shoulder padding because of their millions of adoring fans and not because the other 99% of the population wants to see them get Luigi'd? That's right, it's every tech bro that's ever told you that if you just learn to code, you'll somehow be able to afford your mortgage overnight. I was once a small business owner boss babe who actually runs like 3 cults selling cheap leggings and diet supplements to depressed soccer moms. Small loan of $1 million, stop buying avocado toast and buy stock in Tesla. A $5 espresso macchiato a day is why you can't afford rent. You have to earn your caffeine by hustling. Now watch me drink my organic, fair trade, gluten-free, vegan coffee. As an American, I live every single day crushed under the designer Italian loafer of financial elitism and economic disparity. So I can say this without exaggeration, this song is one of the most important and timely satires I've seen recently. And perhaps my favorite thing about it is what its performance in the grand final says about where we are right now as a society of common people. Tommy was expected to do well at Eurovision. He's popular, he's well known, he's well liked, and this song is a serious earworm. And history has shown us that when a song starts with several jokes about being the winner of Eurovision, you know you're in for something great. But I don't think anyone expected him to come in third. He nearly won the popular vote, and he lost it to the televote winner by a single point. And when you consider that the video for Espresso Macchiato currently has more than twice the number of views than the second place winner, well, I think that kind of says it all. This was unprecedented. I mean, sure, the entire vote this year was absolutely insane. People are going to talk about the mess that were those final results for years to come. But this was one of the biggest surprises that was actually pleasant. Not only did the Estonian team prove that comedy is an art to be taken seriously as a competitor, but the massive public showing of support for this song says, to me, that the message of this entry really hit home for a lot of people. I know there are plenty of people who just vote for songs based on playability or vibes, and that's perfectly fine. But there's an equal number of people who vote based on artistic analysis and resonance. And a song criticizing celebrity hustle culture and business bros with a side of Trump snark makes my poor American ass very, very happy and shows that I think the common people are ready for revolution. Am I saying that espresso macchiato is do you hear the people sing? No, of course not. But I'm not saying that it doesn't touch on that same sense of overall disgruntlement with the status quo. And there's another lesser known, but I think equally important side to this entry. Remember how I said that Tommy is besties with Joost Klein? Well, he was one of Joost's biggest supporters after the events of last year, and he actually collaborated with him on a track for his recent album Unity, which, by the way, is a fantastic album, and if you haven't heard it, you need to go listen to it. The amount of real-world lore surrounding that album is worthy of its own 2-hour video, let me tell you. Anyway, the track is called, and if you don't know about this, you're going to be shocked that they let Tommy in this year. The track is called United by Music, and it's a pretty explicit EBU diss track that calls out their hypocrisy of claiming to be neutral and apolitical and uniting, but continuing to support and protect countries involved in aggressive conflicts and delegations that openly break rules. I have a theory that Tommy entered Eurovision as a sort of act of vengeance for his best friend. And I think coming in third with a song about hypocrisy and very nearly unseating the country that caused the problem in the first place is a wild story that's honestly kind of sweet in its own way. It's the kind of thing that I don't think would have happened if he had submitted any other kind of song, and I don't think it would have felt nearly as triumphant. The history of comedy at Eurovision may be rocky. It may be filled with non-starters, missteps, and outright stinkers, but it's also filled with sharp commentary, iconic characters, and absolute legends. Eurovision is well known for being campy and fun, and it wouldn't have near the reputation it's enjoyed without comedy. As far as I can tell, the 2025 season is the only year that 2 novelty songs have cracked the top 5, and only the second time a novelty song has made the top 5 in general, if you include Verka Serduchka's Dancing Lasha Tumbai, which finished second for the Ukraine in 2007. As we've just seen, Tommy Cash and his caffeine addiction finished third for Estonia and carried the popular vote. But Sweden's Kai with the sauna anthem Bara Bara Bastu came in 4th overall and finished in the televote ranking just behind Estonia. This was a historic year for comedy entries, and love them or hate them, you can't deny that they have staying power and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And I, for one, think the Eurovision Song Contest just wouldn't be the same without our beloved jokers. If you made it to the end of this video, first of all, congratulations, and second, I want to thank you so much for watching. This is a subject I've been wanting to cover for a while, and like I said before, this year's Eurovision really felt like the sign I needed to just go ahead and do it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so please tell me, what is your favorite Eurovision comedy entry, and how do you feel about the idea of joke songs in general? Do you agree that comedy can be effectively used as a vessel to critique society? Or do you think I'm overthinking dumb songs about coffee and I wasted like a month making this video and I just need to shut up? It's okay, you can tell me the truth. If I cared about what people thought, I wouldn't be making videos like this on YouTube with a backdrop like this. Seriously though, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I had a lot of fun researching and writing it, and I hope you had as much fun watching it as I did making it. I'm going to do that annoying thing where I beg you to give me a like or a subscribe if you enjoy these kinds of offbeat media essays. I know it's annoying when you've watched a YouTuber talk for hours about something and then they keep talking for a few minutes more just to beg you to click on stuff. But I promise you, the likes and the subscribes and the comments really are massively helpful for us when it comes to the almighty algorithm. And my cat demands a new cat tree. On that note, don't forget I have an Etsy shop where I sell all kinds of designs for underrepresented fandoms and hobbies. I'm always looking for new design ideas, so if there's something you've always wanted to see and couldn't find, Give me a suggestion and I might make it. I've also started taking art commissions again, so if you want to brag to your friends that you got emailed a drawing from a YouTuber with 2,000 subscribers, check the link in the description. Anyway, thank you all so much again for watching. I will see you in the next video, and I'm going to leave you with these words of wisdom. Always stay cool, like a swimming pool. Here's my cat.